So I investigated how Alex Hormozi actually makes $8 million a month with info, and I did this by watching a ton of his old content about how he actually produces content, his content strategy and stuff like that, funnel hacking a ton of his funnels, and as you can see here, I've laid everything out in an insane way, so we have a ton of stuff to go over today. But in specifically, I wanted to point out 5 things, which is number 1, how Daddy Hormozi abuses content quote-unquote cross-pollination to ratchet up info sales, even though he's already tapped out the online business market, but of course you can do this too. Number 2, Alex's Chad sales letter framework he used to sell $5 million plus worth of scaling workshops. Number 3, where to find a free Google Doc with a whole framework for completely free. Number 4, long form is still the best content type in 2026, right? Alex actually says no, there's a new champ on the block, and it is not shorts either. And 5, a sneaky 4-part framework Alex uses to get viewers psychologically addicted to his content, and he actually directly cites this as the reason that he gets so many views every single month, and actually a lot more that I didn't feel like coming up with a sexy bullet for. Free info marketing resources in the description if you want to check those out, and let's go ahead and hop right on into it. So what is the overall goal of Alex Hormozi's business? This is something that he lays out in his book, $100 million Offers, and no one really wants to read all that, so let's just go over it much simpler. So basically, it's to provide big value, for people to use the big value, for people to get big results off the big value, and then for people to hire Alex to get big results. So obviously, if you tell somebody to do something and then they do it, and this is going to be like sort of a recurring theme in Alex's funnel, and sort of like his mental frameworks for how he thinks about things. If you tell somebody to do something and they do it, and then a good thing happens, they're more likely to do something that you tell them to do in the future. And so his goal is to provide as much value to the market as possible. And then when people use that value, and they use that value to scale up to such an extent that they can actually be one of Alex's portfolio companies, it's sort of like a thing where he wins automatically, right? I think he referred to it as him reverse engineering success. And so this is something that we're going to go back to over and over again. And so in terms of the $100 million personal brand, because what is the first principle of selling info products? It's getting traffic. How is most people going to be getting traffic? It's going to be a personal brand and content. So this is legitimately everything that I could find about Hormozi's content and branding. You can see over there that we're going to be going over a lot of stuff. I rewatched a lot of Alex Hormozi's content to get to all this. So let's go and hop right on into it. So I don't know why I'm doing that. So what is a personal brand? So Alex says, I think a personal brand is just the things that you choose to associate with. And so Alex pretty much breaks everything down always to like the first principles of what it is. And so he says a personal brand is just the things that you choose to associate with, which also sort of leads into the idea that a personal brand cannot be negative, because you cannot negatively associate with something. You can only choose the things to associate with. And so that's just sort of like the whole lens from which we're going to be viewing this. And so what is the overall goal here? Alex says is to build as much influence as possible, and he actually lays out a 4-part framework, just so I'm not clickbaiting you. This is actually what I'm talking about in number 5, that he uses to get as much influence as possible. And so this is status, power, credibility, and likeness, or SPCL, and you can like remember it by the word special. But okay, what is status here? It's control over scarce resources that other people desire. An example of that being money. And so if you control scarce resources that other people desire, people are more likely to think that you can get them those same resources, and people are more likely to trust you. And I guess like I should probably define what influence is. Influence is you telling somebody to do something and then they actually do it. And so people are much more likely to listen to you if you have the same thing that they want. An example of this being money in the business niche. If I have a ton of money and I say, hey, here's how you get money, you're more likely to listen to me. Power, what is power? It's you influencing somebody to do something and something good happening. And so this is going back to like the same idea over here. He calls it say-do correspondence. And so if I tell you, hey, drink this weird magical liquid in this flask and good things are going to happen to you, you drink the weird magical liquid in the flask and good things happen to you, you're more likely to believe that when you do something in the future, good things are going to happen to you. And what is this? Say-do correspondence is what Alex Hormozi calls it. Credibility, everyone pretty much knows what credibility is. It's just proof. It's proof that you can do what you say you can do. And so this is testimonials, video testimonials, different things like that. Likeness, what is likeness? It is relatability and authenticity. And so this is you actually connecting with the audience, or perhaps like the audience connecting with you based on your values, even your appearance, or just like your overall vibe. And so if you have British teeth, like I have British teeth, perhaps that's a point of likeness that's added to me. If you have like this similar way of thinking that I do, or you have a similar appearance to me, or you like to wear black tape on your nose to emulate a nose strip, that's a point towards likeness. I think one of the most important parts of personal branding in 2025 that most people overlook is the relationship aspect of personal branding, because you have everyone addicted to giving away a ton of value, and you have like all these like low edited Miro whiteboard videos, whereas like before it was like the super high edited videos. Everyone's addicted to giving away as much value as possible, but no one actually tries to build a relationship with the audience itself. And I would say the best way to quantify a relationship within a personal brand is if you could move to a completely different offer and still have a ton of people following selling you. And so let's say like you sell like some make money online offer over here, but then you say, hey, I suddenly hate make money online. I'm going to switch to the gym niche. If a lot of people transfer over and a lot of people still follow you, that's a sign that you had a strong personal brand, because it's more about you rather than the value that you're trying to provide or the product that you're going to sell. Because people are really good at selling products, but people are not as good at selling themselves oftentimes, right? And so content packaging. So this is like the overall lens through which to view content. And so what do we actually say in the content itself? And so that's obviously going to start at the start of the video. And then what do you have at the start of the video? It's going to be a hook. And so how do we do a hook according to Alex Hormozi? Is a 3-part framework for this: promise, proof, and plan. And he also has like 2 extra ones, which are pretty much amplifiers. So the promise is what the viewer will get in exchange for watching the video. The proof is the proof that you can deliver on that promise. And the plan is the way that you'll go about delivering on that promise. And so you think at the start of the video, what did I say? I investigated how Alex Hormozi actually makes $8 million a month with info. Okay, that's the promise. You're going to learn how Alex Hormozi makes $8 million a month with info. What's the proof that I can show you this? I rewatched a ton of his old content about how he makes his content, and also funnel hacked all his funnels. In what way am I going to show you how he does all this? These 5 specific things, as well as like all this, which I would say like when I scroll through here, that's more of like the visual thing, which I'm going to get to here in a second. But what's the way I'm going to show you all this? It's going to be these 5 things, right? And so even I did this in the start of the intro. And so it's sort of a prime example, right? And then also like as a couple bonus ones, pain, what problems they won't have to deal with because they watched the video. And so these are things that he sort of like tacked on later as things that you can also do. And so I could have said something like, so if you're tired of seeing a empty calendar and you like to get that filled up with qualified leads, then you should probably watch this video. Or like if your content system sucks and you're not getting as much views as you want, you should probably watch this video because I'm going to show you how to fix that, or something like that, right? And then picture is just a visual that shows them what they're going to get during the video. And so I would say that's like when I scrolled through here and you could like see all the different stuff that we're going to go over. That's sort of visual of what you're going to get, right? Next, the retention or average view duration system. And so once you get someone hooked and they're actually watching the video, you have to get them to watch the full video or you're going to be low-key fricked. How do you do that? Alex Hormozi says, my favorite driver of retention is curiosity, because if done correctly, people will wait literal years. And you can see that like with his book launches, like he teases out like his next book for literal years, like has it on his shelf and like blacks out the name or whatever. And so you can definitely see he practices what he preaches there. And so curiosity drives retention because unresolved questions keep people's minds turning. So the goal is to embed questions in your audience's mind, either explicitly, meaning like you directly ask them a question that they want to know the answer to, or implicitly, meaning you don't necessarily ask a question, but the question is still present in their minds, right? And so there are 3 ways to do this, as Alex Hormozi says. And if I remember correctly, this is ripped straight out of his $100 million leads book. And so what is this? Number 1 is list. And so this is facts, tips, ideas, and opinions presented one after another under a theme. And so why it works: giving a set numbers, like as an example, 10 mistakes or 7 ways, opens a loop in people's minds that they can't close until they see all of them. And so 7 ways I invest $1,000 in my 20s that paid off big, 28 ways to stay poor, okay? Next one, steps. And the definition of this is actions done in a specific order to achieve a result. And so why it works, it's the same thing with opening a loop, but as Alex Hormozi says, it's perhaps even more powerful than lists, since you have to have every step or you cannot get the goal. And so this one is just 7 ways I invest $1,000 in my 20 that paid off big. You can go to the 3rd way and you can go to the 5th way, and it doesn't really matter. You can still get some of the value out of the video. But if it's steps, it's a sequential thing where you have to have every single step in order or you're not going to be able to make it. And so if you have 3 steps to creating a great hook, but you only watch step number 2, I mean, maybe you'll get a tiny bit of value out of it, but you're not going to get a quote unquote great hook because you don't have all the steps out of it. How to create a headline in 7 steps. Sort of the same thing there. And 3 stories. This is real or fake events with a lesson or a takeaway. And so why does it work? Humans are naturally wired for storytelling, and it works on both the emotional and logical parts of the brain, okay? Examples, I think, is like directly from Alex Hormozi. My editor made me do 19 drafts. Here's what I did to him. My journey from the gym floor to a 5-star hotel. And so as Alex Hormozi also says, you can mix all 3. And so you can actually have a list containing steps inside each item, plus stories that illustrate each step, just to show you that you can actually get creative with this. And so CTAs, Alex, what are we doing for CTAs? He says very direct and short CTAs, a third of the way through the video and then one at the end. And speaking of CTAs, if you'd like a bunch of free info marketing resources, you can check out the first link in the description where you can get a bunch of free info marketing resources. So good, they're practically free money for any info seller, marketer, copywriter smarter than a 6-year-old. It just goes to a free school group with a bunch of resources, which you can check out in the description below. And so he also has one at the end where typically like it'll be like a slightly longer thing. I don't think he necessarily does as many CTAs in his actual content, but I think like what this is like pretty much like what he recommends for most people, because Alex Hormozi has like such a big thing, like just according to value, where he wants like literally like 99.99% of his content to just be just specifically value focused and like not CTAing or not pitching at all. So I think he doesn't follow this as directly for himself, but this is what I've heard him recommend in the past. And so iteration system. And so obviously like a big part of content is iterating and getting better over time and doing things and tweaking things to get higher retention, more people watching your videos, your thumbnails, etc. And so what do we do here? In order to consistently get better results over time, Alex takes his top 10 outlier inputs, finds all the commonalities between those things, and then does all those things in his inputs. That sounds very high level and makes no sense. What am I talking about here? In terms of content. One example is that he took all of his videos that got the top 10% of views and then found the commonalities in the hook and does those things. And so actually, like in the hook, how he directly says that he figured out this whole system is he took, like, I think it was like his top 35 videos, because he probably posted like around 300 videos at that point. And he said, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all my top videos that got all the most views, and I'm going to see what they all did in the hook, because the hook is the most important part, like for views and average view duration and stuff like that. And so what is the best way to keep people retained? And so he figured out that every single one of those videos had this framework where it had a promise, had proof that he can deliver on the promise, and it had a specific plan laid out. And these are also like things that he tacked on later to that idea. And so he also does like the same thing with dating. Like I saw some like reel where he literally, like, on every single date that he goes with Layla, he takes like the top 10% of those dates and like finds the commonality. Like, dude tries to optimize every single bit of his life basically. But in terms of volume, what do we do in terms of volume? Alex makes 450 pieces of content a week. So Alex is sort of the volume king. He says elsewhere that he does 35,000 a year. And so dude literally posts on every single platform and is omnipresent. You can go on like the most obscure social media and still find Alex. So Alex is going crazy in terms of volume. Niche down. Alex says to keep content niched. And so he gave the example of a business he knows that makes $1 million a year with a reach of only like 2.8 thousand people on social media, simply because social media platforms have gotten really good at this point at putting niche content in front of a certain niche. But one thing that I would say is that this does seem to be an area where Alex isn't practicing as much as he's preaching, because recently, I don't know if we've pivoted away from this. This is what he said recently to do, is to keep content niched. But you'll see him do content like build a mind so strong it scares people, where, I mean, obviously Alex is in the business niche, and he's sort of going down like the same pipeline that a lot of other people go in the business niche, where like eventually, like when they tap out the market, I would say Alex is like really the only one that's even gotten close to tapping out the online business market. He's sort of doing the pipeline where he goes to like self-improvement content, or like content that's like very tangentially related to business, but not really. I mean, this content sort of just appeals to everyone, not even necessarily business owners. And so it doesn't seem that Alex is as closely following this nowadays, but in the past, like he's even said, like at one point, like he tried posting like relationship content and like Mosey meals and stuff like that, like what he eats every single day. And like he said that, yes, the views would go up and the views would like pretty much double, but like all of his statistics of his business, like revenue and opt-ins, would go way down. So he says to keep it niched. Don't know what he's doing nowadays, but it is what it is. Long form versus short form. What do we do, Alex? What do we do? He says that shorts are for awareness and longs are for conversion. And so why is this? Long form content builds more influence than shorts due to the higher number of reinforcement cycles. And so you can think of the example of 2 hours of long content equals about 480 shorts in terms of exposure. And so in terms of just how much they're getting exposed to you on longs versus shorts, like the difference is like absolutely insane. So shorts are more for awareness, right? But there's a different type of long form content that builds even more influence than regular long form content. And that's something we're going to go over here in a little bit. And so what is the best length of videos, Alex? And so Alex says that there is no such thing as too long, only too boring. And so his framework is value per second. And so the point is to say what you need to say without purposely dragging content out, but also not being afraid to post long content as long as it's actually valuable for every single second, right? That's all I wanted to talk about in terms of Alex's overall content strategy. To get a little bit more specific at what he's doing here, he runs a pretty wide funnel on YouTube where he pretty much only posts top of funnel and middle of funnel content. This is sort of getting to the point where it's like beyond top of funnel content, where it like even like appeals to like much broader audience than even his niche. Like you can see him like also do stuff like watch this video to generate thousands of leads, or how to speak so well people give you money, I guess. This one seems like a little bit more related to his niche. If I started a business in 2026, I'd do this. Obviously, I'm not going to be roasting Alex Hormozi. I'm sure he knows what he's doing. I mean, he's Daddy Hormozi, so I'm just not going to roast him. But what type of content was I talking about up here, where I sort of clickbaited you into saying I'm going to talk about it later? I'm actually talking about live streams, because as he talked about in this video right here, we get 34.2 million views a month. Here's how, just copy me. He actually talked about that in the future, what his content strategy is 2 words. It's going to be live and interactive. And so this is what Alex Hormozi is focusing on in 2026. Why is this? I actually made an entire video about this topic, actually predicting the fact that in the future, and perhaps even in 2026, the main content strategy for selling info products is going to be live streams. And so you can check that out if you want to, but I won't talk about it too much here. And so what was I talking about with that cross-pollination secret I mentioned at the start of the video? Again, like I'm not clickbaiting you here. I'm actually going to go over everything. What was I talking about here? So Alex Hormozi is probably the only person in the online business space that is actually getting to the point where you could say probably he's tapping out the space. Obviously, like I think there's always going to be like more money to go around. But if there's anybody that's quote unquote tapped the online business space out, it's going to be Alex Hormozi. And so what is the solution here? How do you expand your audience outside your own niche if you've already tapped out your own niche? Well, Alex does it by doing a bunch of podcasts. And so what this allows you to do is take people's really big audiences like Logan Paul, or is that Jake Paul? I genuinely don't even remember. But Jay Shetty, like a bunch of these other business dudes, Chris Williamson, this allows his audience to quote unquote like cross-pollinate with other people's audiences. And so he gets some of their stuff, they get some of his stuff. Moving on to the Instagram over here. What do we have going on here, Alex? There's actually a fair bit more relationship content on Instagram than there is normally. Okay, I guess that story is not available anymore. But in terms of like the actual just types of content that he's doing, it's number one going to be business/life value yapping and also a still tweet. So that's pretty much just like the main content types that he's doing at this point. You can see here it's just going to be him yapping.
It does not.
You can see here that it's just going to be him yapping in front of a background. And then this one is just like a still tweet with like pretty much like no audio. One thing that I wanted to mention for this type of content.
It does not.
Be quiet, Alex. One thing that I wanted to mention about this type of content is that it does something that I like to call subliminal flex maxing, which is actually something that I came up with 5 seconds ago. And so what is this? It's when you film in an area that most people could not normally film in. And so what does Alex do? He doesn't have just like his bedroom like I do in the background or like some like trashy like supermarket or something. No, Alex actually films in a dedicated studio where you can tell like this is like very high dollar, not just something that anybody can access. And so just the fact that he's in there gives him more proof than anyone else. And so I guarantee you, if he said the exact same thing, and he was like in like some bedroom or something like I am, he wouldn't be listened to nearly as much as if he was in like a dedicated studio like he is. Moving on to the X over here, or Twitter, what are we doing over here? He does something that I like to call content pre-testing. And so he said that most people, the average person, what they do is whenever they get an idea through the day, they email themselves the idea. But Alex Hormozi isn't the average person. And so what he does is he actually goes on Twitter and sort of quote unquote pre-tests his ideas on Twitter. And so what he does is he posts an idea as he gets them throughout the day. And then what he does is he goes through all his like posts for the week and says, hey, this one was an outlier, and so maybe he might make a video about like focus/patience, because I don't know why it's scrolling up, but because content that does well in the short form typically is going to do better in long form. And so you can see this one got like 5,000 likes versus this one that got 1,000, this one that got 1,000. So maybe like focus is something that people really want to hear about. And if he makes a video on that, it's more likely to do well, right? And he also links to the quote Mozi Money newsletter, which is something that we're going to be going over pretty soon. And so where does bro send all this traffic? It's actually to 3 places, okay? Number 1, it's going to be where you can download your free scaling roadmap. Number 2, it's going to be the easiest business I can help you start, free trial. And number 3, it's going to be business owners want to scale faster, blah, 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 work with us, portfolio stuff. Okay. Number 1, get your free personalized $100 million scaling roadmap in under 30 seconds. And so what this is pretty much just an opt-in for his email marketing, and he just like created like a really banger lead magnet and got a ton of people to sign up for that. Speaking of email marketing, what are we doing here, Alex? Why do we even do email marketing? But again, with, as he says, it's because it gets 40x ROI. I will warn you, the page that we're about to land on is like demonically possessed and it's not working properly. Like you can see where my cursor is versus like where that's drawing. I don't really know what's going on this page. Like the whole thing is like corrupted and weird, but we're just going to roll with it. Mozi Minute Entrepreneur Math. And so like one thing that you can see here is that was supposed to be like over there, but again, like it's demonically possessed. Mozi Minute. And so this is consistent branding. And so every single email that he sends is leading with Mozi Minute. And so what this is you know who is sending the email instantly. Like as soon as you see Mozi Minutes, you know it's Alex Hormozi, right? And so what he does here, the strategy here that he specifically talks about with words I like, is that it's an instant reward for opening the email. This is you giving them a little bit of a chunk of meat before like they get to like the actual meat of the email. And so this is pretty much just like a reward for even opening the email to begin with. And then like that makes you like quote unquote like more likely, as Alex says, to go to like the main meat of the email. And so the main meat of the email is Mozi Minute Entrepreneur Math. And so he keeps these under 200 words. And what he does is a repeatable formula where this is like all he does every single time. And so it's just words I like, Mozi Minute, then like why this matters, and then blah, 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 right? And so Mozi Minute is just under 200 words. And what's that? All I had to say here. He does like a meme in the PS, which again, like the whole, okay then. As I said, literally this thing is demonically possessed.
You what?
Running on out of here as quickly as possible. What do we also have? The second CTA that he had in his description is school.com. And so obviously this is where he is now a co-founder of School along with Sam Ovens. And so one like interesting thing that I wanted to note is since they're moving on to a new platform, they obviously want to associate the new thing that a person is going to with something that they're already familiar with, in this case, Alex Hormozi. So they just slap a big picture of big dog Alex Hormozi right there to like, again, like associate the platform more with Hormozi. And like they even talk about him a little bit there. And so that's just like sort of the second thing that he CTAs to. Third one is the scaling workshops. And so Alex has gotten a lot more, I guess you could say, like bullish about promoting his own products and his own info in recent months, because used to like he would never actually CTA in his videos just to his scaling workshops, but he is now. So Alex says it's not an event, it is a scaling workshop, and it's not motivational hype, it's tactical help solving real world business problems. In my opinion, that is very vague and sucky. I'll just be honest with you, because it's not an event, it's a scaling workshop. That doesn't really mean anything to me. And like a scaling workshop is an event. Like what are we talking about, Alex? Like that doesn't really pose a benefit to me. I mean, I guess like scaling workshop is like a slight benefit, but like that doesn't really tell me anything about like why it benefits me or anything. It's just, it's very vague and nebulous. That like that sentence does not mean anything. It's not motivational hype. It's tactical help solving real world business problems. I mean, I guess like that's slightly better, but it's not motivational hype. Like I wouldn't expect it to begin with. It's tactical help. You know, it's a little bit vague, but at least I know it's going to be helping me. Solving real world business problems. Again, that's like literally like the most vague thing ever. Like imagine like we were on a sales call and I tried to pitch you that I'm going to solve your business problems. It's just like, get out of here, dude. Like, what are you talking about? You have to be a little bit more specific than that, or at least that's what I would recommend in the headline. But the VSL script itself was actually really good, and we're going to be going over that here in a minute. And that's the same VSL script framework that I'm going to be giving you. I mean, I'll also recommend thrapping this Johnson above the fold. And so you can see this button here, when you scroll up, is not originally above the fold. And I mean, I know Alex probably doesn't care about like CRO that much or conversion rate optimization, but it would do slightly better if you would slap that Johnson above the fold. And so what do we have below here? It's just going to be a bunch of proof with this lady yapping about something about how Alex Hormozi is amazing or something, a few testimonials, and like sort of just the what's inside section. It doesn't really matter too much. What are we actually saying during the VSL, Alex? It's going to be this framework right here, which is something that you can get first, link in the description, as like this is going to be like my CTA at the end of the video. It is again like pretty much just a bunch of free info marketing resources, and this is included. So if you want that, you can check that out. But other than that, like what is it that he actually says within the script? Let me ask you a question. So there's a question opener, which is pretty standard. And so it opens a loop in the person's mind. And if the question is pertinent to the viewer's pain, it can work exceptionally well, which I think this did pretty good. Have you ever felt like you can't take a vacation, or delegating feels risky, or your team looks at you and like you resent your team and you worry about what happens and your life sucks pretty much? And so what he's saying is your life sucks. Okay, the problem is key man risk. And so this is the singular problem that Alex is pinning everything on. And so he's saying you have all these life problems. Your wife doesn't love you. Your dog died the other day. Why is it? It's because of your key man risk in your business. Okay. And so that's a real credible concept, which I like more than just like coming up with like a completely like fake problem that doesn't like really exist and is just existing for the sake of the sales letter. And so, but if you're doing something that like actually exists in reality, it has to be like a unique thing. And so I've never seen a VSL talk about key man risk. I'm not really sure this is something that gets brought up a lot in the context of selling something. So I'm sure that works pretty good. It's the number one reason why entrepreneurs can't scale. And it's also why they can't sell their companies. And it's also why they feel trapped. And so again, like this is the problem that's causing everything. It sucks. Just fix this one thing and your whole life is going to be good, is pretty much the idea that he's trying to push there. Proof. And so after hosting over 1,000 businesses here at our headquarters in Vegas for the last 2 years, I've noticed one very common thing that separates it, blah, blah, blah. Most of the owners think that they own a business when in reality they own a very expensive, high-paying job. And so originally I almost brushed past this line, but actually this is probably my favorite line in the entire sales letter. Why? Entrepreneurs take a lot of pride in the fact that they did not take the traditional 9-to-5 route. And so this hits them like a sack of bricks, since it destroys their pride and makes them immediately want to escape the idea of having a job, because no entrepreneur wants to like feel like they have a job. But Alex is saying, actually, you know, you have this key man risk, and so you actually do have a job, and so that sort of sucks. You don't really want that. Okay, what's going on here is this is hitting all these situations, the ICPs, and so some of them it's going to show up where the growth explodes, and some of them it's when they're like launching a new line and realizing that they don't have the systems to support it. And so he's trying to hit like every single possible ICP that could be watching the video. And this is something else that he talked about, like when he was doing his money models launch, is that he has to list like literally like every single ICP of like everyone, because people will just sit there and wait until like he talks about like the thing that matches their situation. And so he had to say like, You know, if you're a brick and mortar or like an online education business or retail or this or this or this or this, and he had like list out like 20 different examples, it's very important to like actually hit all of your ICP situations. And so what does he say next? Your business is like a bridge, right? You can have 1,000 people on one side and 1,000 people on the other side, blah, blah, blah. It's pretty much just an analogy. This analogy, I wouldn't say is as nearly as good as the one that he included later, because the later one is what I would say is sort of like an irrefutable analogy where like you have to sort of admit his point after you read the analogy. And so this seems like a little bit more ChatGPT generated. It doesn't really seem like as pertinent to people's pains. And so what do we got going on here? This sounds like heaven to burned out entrepreneurs. And so once I fixed this, I was able to run my company off 1 minute a week. I mean, that's just like, you're raising to the heavens at that point if you can do that. Now, to be clear, that didn't happen overnight, blah, blah, blah. It actually sucked. Getting to that point did this, but I can actually show you how to do it a lot quicker. It's pretty much like, again, like the idea you're trying to push. And so again, on a portfolio companies, okay, that's mega proof because they did over 250 million in aggregate revenue. And this is probably a business like yours. And so what he's saying is this is you framing, which is an idea that I've come up with. Like whenever you get away slightly from like talking about like the person and like what they're doing and like their mental state, and like what they're experiencing, you sort of want to frame it back towards them. And so he talks about himself for a little bit where he owns his portfolio companies. Okay, how is this pertinent to me? It's actually probably a business like yours, so I'm equipped to handle your business's situations and your business problems. And so key man risk presents itself in 4 main areas. The first one is marketing. And so basically he's just trying to frame it like he wants like his ICP to essentially look at this and like as they're watching the video to be like, hey, like this is exactly like me. I'm looking in a mirror right now. And he wants every single person that's watching the video to pretty much like fall into these buckets, right? So he's like basically just explaining what key man risk is. And so he's saying as soon as you learn the system to rapidly removing key man risk, you're going to get everything that you want. And so that's why we ended up creating the scaling workshop. And so he finally brings in the solution, finally. Okay, what's the solution here? It's the scaling workshop. It's going to solve your key man risk. We work with a maximum of 100 businesses at a time. I think the average is 80-ish. And so this is immediately decategorizing it from all the opportunities and also adding exclusivity in there. As soon as you introduce a new concept in a sales letter, you need to immediately decategorize it because that is the most important thing immediately. As soon as a person thinks, I've seen this before, or I know what this is, or I've tried this solution before, you are absolutely cooked. So one thing that I always say is as soon as you introduce a new concept, you decategorize it. He introduces the scaling workshop. He says, how is it decategorized? Because we only work with a maximum of 100 businesses at a time, okay? This is not a room like a big conference or rah-rah event, okay? Deliverable, what are we actually getting by going to the scaling workshop? So we will work with you directly on your business with your specific challenges and so that you can leave with blah, blah, blah. You get all this good stuff, okay? It's extremely tactical, so imagine this. And so this is future pacing, okay? He's painting a world without key man risk as basically heaven. And so instead of being the bridge that everything depends on, your business runs on systems, you're happy. You can step away for a week, a month, a year, 2 years, 10 years, and the revenue continues to flow. You have a team that makes decisions with value, clients that get to serve the same quality, and the growth is predictable. Ooh, that sounds good. So what else? Sneakily dunks on the idea of remaining the key man of your business. And so he's pretty much just saying, like, as an English translation, cool people do this thing. And so he's saying, you know, the thing is, the people that come out to Vegas to one of our workshops, they're sort of the cool kids. And so they tend to be the ones that sort of want to turn those high-paying jobs into assets. And so, you know, like if you want to keep your, you know, business as a high-paying job, that's fine. But you're not really for this. I mean, like, we don't really need you here. You're not really one of the cool kids. You're not one of us. But if you're one of those cool people that do want to turn your high-paying job into an actual business, into an asset, you should probably come out with Vegas and you can hang with the cool kids. Done the right way. The crazy thing is it's like, hey, you know, my foot hurts. When should I go see the doctor? This was the irrefutable analogy that I'm talking about. And so he's saying, we're going to make sure it works both ways because we're heading towards a close here. That way you don't get stuck waiting another 6 to 12 months while those problems continue to get worse. Done the right way. The crazy thing is it's like, hey, you know, my foot hurts. When should I go see the doctor? It's like, well, when my foot hurts even less. And so, yeah, it's like in reality, it's going to be harder to walk in the future. And so he's saying, don't excuse yourself by saying like, I'll do this later, or I'll do this when my business is better, or like I have more time and stuff like that. Because he's saying you're never going to have more time. You're never going to be in a better situation. You go to the hospital, not when you get better, but when you're sick. And so you're sick, visit the hospital, visit the scaling workshop. If you want to get our team's help, click below, blah, blah, blah. We'll see if it's a fit. Final CTA. And so this has again been how Alex Hormozi actually makes $8 million a month with info. If you'd like the VSL script framework that he used for this, I'll show you the first page here, like exact, like step-by-step framework for like how to do the hook. And like it goes on to like do that for like every single section of the sales letter that you saw here. You can check out the first link in the description where it's a bunch of free info marketing resources. Sales page looks scary, but it's all free. It just goes to a group here, and the resources in there, like I'm not even like exaggerating. Like I've put so much time into this. There are so many freaking resources in there. It's actually insane. You can check that out. Community is really fun as well. Second thing is if you would want to work with me to sell more info, whether that has to do with funnels, copywriting, or something else, second link in the description and read the sales letter. It's really fun. Other than that, take it easy, or better yet, don't.